is a version of you that wakes up early, that sits down and does the work, not because someone told them to, but because they decided to. That version of you doesn't scroll for 2 hours in the morning, doesn't say, "I'll start on Monday," doesn't wait to feel ready. That version of you is not a fantasy. They are real. But every single day, you postpone them. And the scariest part is, you don't even notice you're doing it. Let me tell you about a young man named Aryan, 24 years old. Not a bad person. Not someone without talent. Actually, if you sat with him for an hour, you'd think, this guy has something. He thinks deeply. He talks about big ideas. He knows exactly what he wants his life to look like. But knowing and doing, those are two very different things. Every morning, Aryan would wake up, look at the ceiling for a few minutes, and make a quiet deal with himself. Not today, tomorrow. And tomorrow would come, full of the same promises, the same intentions, the same deal. And then tomorrow would leave. He wasn't falling apart. He wasn't crying in the dark or losing sleep. He was just floating, going through the days without really grabbing onto any of them, waiting for the right mood to hit, waiting for things to feel less heavy, waiting for some moment that felt like a proper start. And while he waited, days turned into weeks, weeks turned into months, and somewhere in the back of his mind, a quiet voice kept showing up. It never shouted, it just asked softly, "How long are you going to keep doing this?" Now here's the thing about Aryan that most people wouldn't understand just by looking at him. He wasn't lazy because he didn't care. He was lazy because he cared too much. He was terrified, not of the work, not of the early mornings or the effort. He was terrified of trying, really trying, and still not making it, because as long as he never fully committed, he still had an excuse. He could always tell himself, well, I never really gave it everything. Maybe if I did, things would be different. But the moment he gave it everything, and it still didn't work, that excuse would be gone, and he'd have to face the possibility that maybe he just wasn't enough. So he kept his dreams close enough to feel them, but far enough away that they couldn't hurt him. He'd watch videos about discipline and feel motivated for an hour. He'd make lists on his phone and never open them again. He'd tell himself this week was different. This time he meant it. But the week was never different, because the problem was never about time. It was never really about motivation either. The real problem was simpler and harder than both of those things. Every single day, without drama, without even realizing it, Aryan was choosing the version of himself that felt safe, the one that was comfortable, the one that required nothing difficult. And that quiet, invisible choice, made again and again, was slowly costing him the life he actually wanted. One evening, Aryan found himself walking through the old neighborhood where he grew up. He ended up outside his old school. He didn't plan it, his feet just took him there. He sat down on a bench near the front gate, the same bench he used to sit on at 16, back when the future felt enormous and bright and completely within reach, back when he had no doubt that he was going to do something that mattered. He sat there quietly, thinking about nothing and everything at the same time. An old watchman came around the corner, doing his rounds. He slowed down when he saw Aryan sitting alone in the dim evening light, looked at him for a moment, then, without much ceremony, came and sat beside him. They didn't say anything for a while. Then the old man tilted his head toward the clock tower at the top of the school building and asked, "What time do you think that shows?" Aryan looked up. The clock hands were frozen, stuck. The clock hadn't worked in years. Everyone in the neighborhood knew that. The old man nodded slowly, like he'd expected that answer. Then he said quietly, "A stopped clock always shows the last time it was alive. It doesn't move. But the world around it, it never stops." He didn't explain it. He didn't need to. He just stood up, tucked his hands behind his back, and continued his walk. And Aryan sat there in the silence that followed. For the first time in a long time, something landed in his chest and stayed there. He was the stopped clock, still pointing to the time of his old dreams, still frozen at the moment he first felt that fire inside him. But life hadn't waited. Time hadn't paused out of courtesy. The world had kept moving, quietly, indifferently, without him. He went home that night and sat in his room. He didn't open YouTube, didn't make a new list. didn't set 6 alarms for the morning with the hope that one of them would finally change him. He just sat with himself, and he asked himself one question, honestly, without running from the answer. Who am I choosing to be right now? Not tomorrow, not when things get easier, not when I finally feel ready. Right now, tonight, in this moment, who am I choosing? And something shifted inside him. Not in a loud, dramatic way. No music playing, no sudden burst of energy. Just a quiet, deep shift, like something that had been crooked for years finally settling into place. He realized that the version of himself he kept postponing, the focused one, the disciplined one, the one who showed up even when it was hard, that version wasn't hiding somewhere in the future, waiting for the perfect conditions to appear. That version was a choice, made not once but every single day, in the smallest, most ordinary moments. When you put the phone down and open the book instead, when you start before you feel like it, when you get out of bed even though every part of you wants to stay, when you do the thing even though no one is watching and no one will clap. The best version of you isn't born in one big moment of inspiration. It's built slowly, quietly, stubbornly, from thousands of small decisions that the world will never see. We spend so much of our lives waiting to become someone, waiting for the day we finally feel ready, the day the fear goes away, the day everything lines up perfectly, and we finally begin. But here's what no one tells you. Becoming is not a destination you arrive at. It's a direction you choose every single day. And every day, whether you realize it or not, you are either moving toward the person you want to be or drifting away from them. There is no standing still. The clock is either moving or it's frozen. And a frozen clock has no idea how much time has already passed it by. The version of you that you keep postponing is not out of reach. They are not waiting for some miracle. They are not locked behind some door you don't have the key to. They are simply waiting for you to choose them. Today. Not someday. Today. Right now, somewhere inside you, the real you is sitting quietly, not making noise, not throwing a fit, not giving up on you, just waiting. Waiting for the morning you wake up and mean it when you say enough. Waiting for the day you stop negotiating with yourself and just begin. That day doesn't have to be in the future. It can be today. It should be today, because time is not going to slow down and wait for you to feel ready. And the saddest story you could ever live is not one of failure. It's the story of someone who had everything it took. The talent, the desire, the dreams, but kept postponing the moment they finally used it, until one day they looked in the mirror and realized too much time had passed. Don't let that be your story. The version of you that you keep postponing deserves to exist. Give them today. If this story stayed with you, if it made you feel something real, please like, share, and subscribe to Pax Tales for more stories that go a little deeper.